Hello, hello. Welcome in to this broadcast of the Secure the Bag Book Club. I am your host, Brooke Brown. I run the page What Brooke Spent on YouTube, also www.whatbrooksspent.com. And I'm also the mastermind behind the Secure the Bag Brooke TikTok account as well. So yeah, I am not a guru. I am not an expert. I am simply someone who enjoys researching and putting the dots together and being strategic about my wealth building journey. And I'm taking you along for the ride. If you're tuning in live, go ahead and shout yourself out in the chat. Really glad you're here. Week after week, we pick reads that are meant to grow and protect your wealth. And we do that by acquiring assets. We've talked about topics such as buying art, intellectual property. We've talked about tax planning. And last month, we talked about value investing in the stock market. It's an approach to investing in the stock market. And now this month, we're talking about real estate. Hello, love it. Okay. As you can see, we're progressing along thinking about larger bets, taking bigger risk, trying our hand out at different kind of investment strategies and what we could put our money into. And I'm really excited to use this book, How to Invest in Real Estate. That's what this month's book is for February, by Joshua Dorkin and Brandon Turner. You'll know them from the Bigger Pockets website, Bigger Pockets podcast, and the Bigger Pockets public suite of publications related to real estate. I personally have listened to their programming and have gotten a lot out of it, understood a lot of concepts that were a little bit more complex. And so I figured that we would use this book as a way to kind of like enter into what does it mean, like just wrap our arms around what does it mean to invest in real estate. And there are so many different flavors. The book goes into different strategies, talks about the different levels of investment and whatnot. And so I'm really excited to dive into this book. Honestly, I think that it's going to be quite the ride. So there you go. Also, if you're reading along at home, go ahead and look in the details for the Spotify Premium playlist, where all the books that we have discussed so far are on the Secure the Bag Book Club playlist, and they're all audiobooks. If you have the premium subscription, there you go. And then last but not least, if you're looking for the reading schedule, you're like, okay, so I'm tuning in week after week, but I want to know which chapters we're covering. Go to www.whatbrooksspent.com/events. That's where you'll find the schedule. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive into this week's conversation. So, the book starts out with and we skipped the introduction for the record. We're diving into chapters 1 and 2 for this stream. So in chapter 1, it says 9 questions every real estate beginner wants answered, right? And so they go into conversation or discussions like, or answering questions like, can I invest in real estate if I have a full-time job? Do I need a lot of money? Do I have to have good credit? Is it a great get rich quick thing? What if my market is too expensive? Should I wait until my market changes? And all these different questions. It goes into 9 of them. And it talks about, some really just FAQs, right? Some frequently asked questions that they're like, look, let's just get this out the way right away, right? And what I enjoyed about that FAQ section is that these are the things that got my attention first in the first chapter, right? So it talked about the time commitment, right? So if I have a full-time job, can I still invest in real estate? And they were like, yes, absolutely you can, but you have to be intentional, you have to be strategic, you have to be focused, right? So I was like, all right, time commitment wise, I'm locked in, cool. So then they said the financial commitment, right? And it talked about things like, should I have a large down payment? Should I have good credit, right? And so it's things like that you're just like, okay, I'm thinking, do I have the time? Do I have the money? And is my financial picture set up for success? We'll talk about that in chapter 2 because he goes into that in great detail, or they go into that in great detail. And then the other thing I was wondering about that they, pretty explicitly explained was the limits of my location, right? Is my market too expensive to invest in? Conditions of the inventory, right? So the kind of houses that are around for you to actually invest in at your price point, right? Where the deal makes sense. Things like funding options. They made a little list of funding options, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. Is that how it works? It's on page 28, right, in chapter 1. It talked about doing partnerships, lease option strategies, FHA, 3.5% down payment loans, USDA and VA, no down payment loans, private hard money, seller financing, wholesaling. So these are all vocabulary words, right? Because it's specifically things like wholesaling, financing, retail. We are going to learn how to speak real estate in this book. I'm counting on it. Okay. Um, and then last but not least, it talked about the legal stuff, right? Should I get an LLC? Some people talk about, creating a corporation specifically for their real estate goings ons, right? The business that they're building as a result of their real estate portfolio. And I was like, all right. Oh, and then the last thing they talked about was real estate licensing, like being a realtor or getting your real estate license, right? To be an agent, and the advantages to that, but also the cons of doing that, right? Because you have to, and anyways, read the book and come back to the comment section and let us know what you thought about the legality of doing real estate. And then in chapter 2, it talked about financial readiness. And you guys know, because of the content that I have produced on What Brooke Spent, the channel, some of the content that I produce on other platforms, such as the Asset Academy on my website, whatbrookespent.com, we slash courses, we have talked about this thing called, readiness, right? Preparation. This is all the whole point is preparation and readiness for, is it a financial windfall? Is it an inheritance? Is it a promotion? Is it, unexpected money coming in from somewhere? Like, what is it that we are preparing our wealth for, our wealth journey for? We are confident that we are not going to be at the same position that we are in right now. And so when he talks in chapter 2, I keep saying he, but there's 2 authors. So when the 2 authors talk about financial readiness, right? What I gathered from that chapter is the idea of margin. And I've talked about this before in previous broadcasts, but margin is this idea of you have space, you have a gap between what is coming in and what is going out, right? Your income versus your expenses, right? And so when that gap is good enough, when it's large enough, you have, wiggle room to make some kind of strategic investments so that you can grow your wealth. And it's also thinking about things like tax planning, which protects your wealth. It also talked about discipline. When you are ready to go forth and make investments, whatever those may be, right? The ones we've talked about are the ones that are just, out there that you're just like, I think that would be a wise use of my money. What you also have to realize is that you need to, at some point, make sure that you have the discipline that you are using to influence your spending and your saving and your responsible use of credit, all that stuff. You are financially ready to do things in this space. Then the last part that I really loved about, no, this is the second to last part. The other part that I liked was the part about essentially hustle. That's what I'm summarizing it as, hustle. The hustle of having a job, right? A 9 to 5 that you, or whatever, time frame you're on. You could be on third shift and it won't be a 9 to 5. But anyways, your job, right? You are working for an employer and you are getting an income, right? there are ways to hustle to gain more income, right? There's always, overtime. There is getting a promotion. There is, looking into how you structure your, paid time off and so on and so forth, right? All those things, getting a bonus, that's the hustle of your 9 to 5, right? And that's how you build that, nest egg to say, okay, I'm setting this money aside so that I can do something with it related to growing and protecting my wealth. And then the other part that they talked about is like side hustling, right? Which we all know and love. I'm not going on to go into detail, but like, finding, whether it's, selling a product, or it's teaching a course, or consulting, or just there's all kinds of ways to side hustle, right? And this is the last point that I wanted to make, was as it relates to um scale. That was what I was looking into when I was reading that part of the book, was like, okay, yes, I could, you know um tutor a kid after work, right, after hours. That's one kid and one income, right? That's one level. But if I thought about scale and said, how can I teach as many people as possible and then therefore gain as much income as possible? Well, then now we're talking about digital products. Now we're talking about tutoring on live streams. Now we're talking about groups tutoring and so on and so forth. So you see how like your thought process has to, you gotta think big. You gotta expand your thought process to where it's not just the small, one-on-one type of, because that'll burn you out real quick. And unless you're setting it at a price point that's like worth your while. But ideally you don't want to just be trading your time for your money in that kind of a like tight space. So scale, that's what I'm thinking about, right? So I'm thinking about like, could I start charging for the Asset Academy, which is free at the moment, and so you want to get on that before it gets behind a paywall. I don't know yet, but I'm considering it, right? Or thinking about like ebooks and other kind of products, right? Those type of things scale in a way that it's not that your 9 to 5 or just you trading your labor may not uh, as well do. Okay, so then last thing, so basically we're talking, I want to get your opinion in the comment section, right? How ready do you feel at the moment on a scale of 1 to 10? Go ahead and just type a number in the comments and let me know how ready you feel in this moment ahead of any conversations. Just chapter 1 and 2, how we feeling, I want to know. So let us know in the comment section. After this broadcast leaves, it'll be up on YouTube and you can go ahead and return back to the video at any point. And last but not least, I wanted to promote something that I'm doing that I'm just like, oh my gosh, what are you even like, how, why, huh? So I started a vlog. It's the Asset Underdog vlog. There's a introduction video of what I'm undertaking on my page. And basically what I'm trying to do is in 6 months time, so from now until August, I plan on growing my net worth from 68,000, a positive $68,000 to $100,000. I'm trying to make it to a 6-figure net worth. Can I do it? I don't know, because I got debt. I have, a very not large salary, at the moment. I'm working on getting that, thought through and whatnot. But like, how am I going to make this happen, right? Because literally, Brooke, do you realize that you are going from 68,000 to 100,000, which means that you are essentially challenging yourself to grow your asset values by $5,300 a month, a little bit more than 5,300 a month. Like, what? So I am doing that undertaking And the blog is going to broadcast on Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I really want you guys to join me on the journey. So go ahead and check out that first video and look forward to tomorrow's video. If you're watching this on Wednesday, it'll be tomorrow. I am so excited about this undertaking, and I can't wait for you guys to join me and encourage me and tell me that I've got this, because I have gone back and forth about whether I should have even posted that video, because if I post it, that means I'm accountable to y'all, and I really want to show you guys some very interesting ways that I'm going about making this happen. So thank you so much for joining me on this broadcast. I really appreciate you all. I love that we are just, educating ourselves, and we are learning the lingo, and we're preparing, and we're getting ready for our great wealth transfer, right? All right. So I will speak to you all in the comments, and until then, tell the others.